That's why forgiveness, 7 times 70 forgiveness is so important. So this means with everything clearing up, every time we see a past event more positive, we are basically clearing it up. So forgiveness is the most important one on asking for forgiveness and making amends. This way we're clearing up all our karma, and our karma is our past. So we're cleaning up, and we also change the future because then we no longer have the past. We basically clear our path on the way and make it more lightful. So I really think every moment we have an opportunity to affect the past as well as the future. And every moment what I'm doing affects the future. Every decision, every thought I have, every emotion I have affects my future. And I also have with my free will the choice to clear up the past every time.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Cluff, and as always, I'm going to remind you to hit the subscribe button, leave your comments. We love reading your comments and hearing what your thoughts are about our discussions each time. And of course, like the video, show us a little love. And I am super excited to introduce you to my guest, Hans Wilhelm, today. Hi, Hans.
Hi, Julie. Delighted to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, I am too. You have some really fascinating content out there, so it'll be fun to explore your story, how you got where you are today, and some of the topics that you're most excited about right now. But before we do that, give us a little introduction of yourself, and then we'll go back and explore the story.
Well, I'm a writer and illustrator by my profession, and of course, I grew up in Germany. As you probably can hear, I'm still struggling with the English language, but I do my best. But just sort of like 15 years ago and so on, my father was had died and was dying, and he did not believe in life after death. But I had already been on the spiritual path for at least 50 years, and I told him that what would happen if he dies, what might happen most likely. But he didn't believe in it. He smiled, and then a few days later he died. And it was 5 years later when I went into a bookstore and a stranger came up to me and says, "Hi, I'm Roland Comtra. I'm a medium, and I saw you entering the store. And when you entered, your father came here as well, telling me to thank you for whatever you told him. Because everything you said about what happens after death or once we die came true for him, and he was not so surprised like many, many other souls which are coming to on the other side and are totally confused." And then my father asked me to please tell other people about it, write books about it, etc., which I decided not to do. I decided to reach the young people, and I decided to make very, very short videos in which I draw, because I'm also an illustrator, very simple the way how the law of karma works, reincarnation, how all the dots connect. These are short 5 to 10 minute videos, and they are very popular and have over 20 million viewers. So I guess people understand it and appreciate it. It's a simplicity. And this is what I'm doing at the moment very much. So I share all this spiritual knowledge which I've accumulated over the years in a way that I understand it myself. I make these drawings and these videos also for myself. By drawing them out, I understand these things much more better. It becomes clearer to me. So that's what I'm sharing at the moment. All my videos are free. They're all on YouTube. There's nothing to join, nothing to subscribe if you don't want to. So it is absolutely a free service. And that's what I'm doing at the moment in a nutshell.
I love it. Your videos are really interesting, and like you said, they're short, they're illustrated, you narrate them. They're really wonderful. I'm excited to introduce my audience to the work that you're doing. So take us back, like when you were growing up, what was your spiritual life like, or did you have a religious background? What was that experience?
Well, I grew up in Germany in the Christian kind of environment, although my parents were never really strong churchgoers. But I always had questions. I said, it doesn't make sense because the church or the religion, the way I grew up, never really answered the question, where do I come from, why I'm here, and where I'm going. And it was, I think I remember the one really pivotal moment I had was 12 to 13 years old. I was in a movie house and I saw a movie which was a vacation movie, a silly little comedy. And in that movie, there was a professor, and on the back, and in his study, there was a huge blackboard with hundreds of formulas. And that, of course, makes no sense to me, but it just was part of this movie. And as my eyes scanned over this blackboard, suddenly it fell onto a formula which said 1 plus 1 equals 1. And when I've read that, it was just like a thunderbolt hitting me. That's it. That is the answer. There is no separation. Everything is united. Everything is one. And suddenly, so much things became clearer to me. I just sort of suddenly, we all feel like little islands in the ocean, but all the islands are at the bottom connected on the ground, of the floor of the oceans. So when one sees life as a total connected kind of entity, everything changes. And I think all our pain and suffering comes from the belief of separation. So the idea that we are not separated was very powerful for me at that time. And it was only a little later when I sort of was introduced to the work of Edgar Cayce. And there I heard for the first time really the concept of reincarnation.
Mm.
When I heard that, then everything became clear. Suddenly I know why we have got sick people, rich people, poor people, etc. Suddenly the whole life experience, what we have here, makes total sense to me. And from there onwards, over the last 60 years, I have been studying many, many spiritual paths. But these were sort of the pivotal moments here in my life where suddenly says, yes, that's true, which drove me a little bit away from the traditional religious Christian teachings. Although today Christ still is the center of my understanding and belief, but it is not the religious Christ. It is the inner Christ. I am the temple of God and
Yeah.
not the church building out there. So it's a little bit different today, my understanding. And I was blessed to have met a wonderful woman, Gabriele, in Germany for 50 years. She channeled or basically gave us material from the absolute reality, a material of such profoundness and depth like I've not seen on any other path. And that is probably the basis for most of my videos, because what she explains of how she is it from a much higher level, from the seven-dimensional reality, it just sort of, for me, it's amazing how all these little puzzle pieces fit together. And after all these years, I haven't found any. I found I could find answers to virtually every question in the material that came through her, and is available now in the huge Sophia Library in Germany. And anybody on my website can get a line to it. I am not representing it. I'm not speaking it. What I like about her teaching is that there is no organization, there is no teacher. It is basically the books if you want to read it and follow them, but there is nothing to join because she doesn't want it, any teachers, she doesn't want an organization, because that's all what the religions have done, and the religions have misled so many of us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I do feel like we're in the era where the guru is no longer. Like it's time for everyone to light that flame within, create that connection to what's already always existed. Like you said, the Christ within. I love that. That's
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely right. I like this word. The time of the guru is over. It's true. It is. We have got the guru within ourselves, everyone. And we not only have that, as you know, surely have spoken to about it, we also have got our guardian spirits and other angels and so on. We are never alone. We are always supported. The
hmm
problem is we forget that. That's the thing. And when we forget that, we get very irritated and very lonely and very lost. But it's all there. We carry the whole universe in us. Every cell, every smallest particle contains it all. All is in the all. The whole universe, everything is in the smallest part, as the smallest part is yours. Or God is in every smallest part, and the smallest part is in God. We are in God, and God is in us. And when we just see how it all connects, the unity of it all, there is so much security comes from that understanding and also from that feeling. And if we work with these simple truth, because God is ingenious simplicity, it does not work with all complicated, not with formula, with rituals and traditions and so on. This is all man-made stuff. God is very simple. It's direct here. Speak to him like to with your father or your best friend or brother, etc. And that's all you need, basically. There is nothing else really to do. And together with him, we can clear up all the nonsense which we are still, unfortunately, also attracted to through our ego.
Yeah. I'm curious what your thoughts are about the ego because sometimes when we talk about this God within and we are all God and we are, and I love that that formula caught your eye, 1 + 1 = 1. We are all one. You are you, I am me, but we are all one. And actually, when you were talking about that, I thought of the tree system, where there's many tree systems where all the roots and they're all a connected system, where they used to think that all these trees were battling for the nutrients and for the water underground. What they've discovered in a lot of these root systems, and I know just enough about this to be dangerous. I can't speak to specific species or anything, but what they discovered was that they were actually working in tandem. They were working together, and it wasn't like this underground fight for resources as much as it was a collective of energy and sharing. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about the ego, because when we talk about God being within us and that we are God, sometimes people can take that and become egoic in that, I am God. So how do we navigate that? How do we balance that information with the ego?
Very good one. I have a little video on that one. Am I God or not? And in my understanding, we are not God. God is in us, but we are not God. We did not create ourselves. Let's be very straightforward. We were a part of a creation process, and God is everything and omnipresent. I am not omnipresent. I'm sitting right here in front of my computer. So I don't have all the qualities like omnipresence, omnipowerful, and omniknowing like God is. So there is no way for me to ever say that I am God. But I'm part of God and God is in me. It's very different. So yes, I fully understand. There's a lot of New Age teachings. I am God, because I am totally in charge of my life, which we are to a degree. We really create our life. That is true. Also the negative things. But we are not God. And so I'm very clear about that one. But it's our ego can carry it away. And there is so much New Age teachings that says that we are God, trying to experience himself in this world and so on, because God has forgotten or purposely forgot who he is, and therefore he goes to all the suffering. That is, I think, not the belief I share. I believe all the suffering we have here is not from God trying to find out how powerful he is, which is a lot of New Age teaching. I believe we have created this nonsense, this power, this pain here through our negativity, our selfishness, our egoistic kind of feeling. And now we are basically reaping the pain. But God doesn't want us to reap it or have pain or suffering. That is not God's nature. I mean, the idea that God would send somebody into a third world country and have all the illnesses you can imagine so that he can experience himself, how powerful he is on the negativity, makes no sense to me. So we have created all the pain and suffering on this planet Earth through our negative actions. We must forget that we have been incarnated many times. The world was probably far more violent in the past than it is today. And we have done all each and every one has done lots of violent acts. And these things we basically now reaping, they're coming back to us. Now is the time where the earth goes into a major changes into a higher vibration. And for that, the earth has to let go of all the negativity, which we human being, the only one, have created it. And some of us have to experience this karma, or this negativity, and others don't need to. Others have come here to help and support, and not everybody needs to suffer through this transition. But it is a very powerful time we are in right now, and I like to compare it, although don't know exactly from personal experience how it is, but I think this is how a mother would feel, or mother to be, when she gives birth. I remember when our daughter gave birth for a child, and she was so exhausted of this, she said to my wife, "This is the only grandchild you will ever have." I assure you. Well, 2 years later, she was pregnant again and looking forward to have another kid. So yes, the pain is suffering, but once it's done, we are happy to be free of it. It's like a burden on our soul, this negativity, our karma. And once we have cleared it off, we are free. It's a path to freedom.
Yeah. I love that very grounded answer. That's beautiful, and I think it gives great context to this idea of our relationship with the Creator. That's really beautiful. Um, when you talk about, well, let me go back a little bit. What did you do? Like, what was your experience as a young adult? Were you in this, you had this experience with this formula and you recognized this and you started to explore and learn about reincarnation and different things, which I am totally on board with you. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home and was taught all of the traditions of that experience, but a lot of it never made sense to me. And then as this understanding of reincarnation and multiple, or some people call it parallel lives, some people call it past lives, whatever you choose to call it, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense because this one and done experience that people often point to within a Christian construct never made sense to me. What what was your development over time? Like what were you doing as a young adult and as you developed a career before you mentioned your illustrations and so forth? Because it's more recent that you've entered this space of being the teacher in this realm, right?
A sharer. I don't like to be a teacher. I share basically. Because if you're a teacher, you take responsibility. I don't want to take that responsibility if somebody misunderstands what I'm trying to share. Yeah, what happened to me, I studied a lot of spiritual path, but I'm just recently thought about it. It says, but another pivotal moment came. I was a teenager. There was puppy love. I was totally in love, and suddenly it came to an end, drastic end. I was rejected. I was replaced. Now, you went through a lot of trauma in your life. I did not. And I thought that was probably one of the most traumatic things of my, it was puppy love. Today I says, how could I? But anyway, I was 18 or whatever, and I was totally crushed, absolutely crushed, suicidally crushed. Not that I would do suicide, but I was at the lowest bottom I could ever imagine being, because life I could no longer control life. It was controlling me. I had no power anymore to have the life I really wanted to, the relationship. And so I was in my bed and crying, feeling terribly sorry about myself. And then suddenly, out of the blue, the words came from Our Father. It says, "Thy will be done." Very quietly, very calmly. I said, all right, I give it a try. You probably know more better what's right for me. So I would totally surrender to thy will be done. This was another powerful, powerful experience. Suddenly, just like it, I drained all the negative, it drained out of me. I was feeling so supported, so loved, so warm, so secure suddenly. Everything, all the tensions were gone just by surrendering to thy will be done. These simple words. That was, I think, a moment where I clearly knew there's another power. I studied it so far, I heard about it, but the power is right there with me all the time. All I have to do is to surrender. Surrender doesn't mean to give up, but surrender means to give over. So say, let you do it. I've done my share and I'm happy to do more, but I let you be the captain of this one for this moment. And that moment gave me really surety there is something, we call it God, we can call it guardian spirit, whoever it is. But this kind of switch of emotion in me, I didn't cause just by only using these three words. That's caused by a higher energy. So this form of surrendering has helped me in many, many ways in my life. And then also what happens in the 60s, which I think is very interesting. There was a wonderful book called The Handbook to Happiness by Ken Keyes. I don't know whether you came ever across it. And he had this wonderful basic message and says, look, think of all the negativity you have, all the pain, all the suffering, absolutely every suffering you had, every grief, every death, etc. They're all unfulfilled expectations.
Yes.
And that realization that everything is an expectation which I have made. I've made that this relationship lasts, this love affair, this person should not die, etc. These were all expectations which I've made, and suddenly they come to a crushing end. And that hurts. But it says, if you are able, transfer it to preferences. Say, I would have preferred if this relationship would have continued. I would have preferred if my partner would stay alive. I would have preferred. The moment we change from expectation to preference, again, our whole system changes. It's a thought switch which we do. And I found this a very, very powerful teaching, which I've used in many times in my life when I had my own disappointments, the own things didn't go the way, to simply say, oh, this didn't work out. And some words I shouldn't say. But anyway, then it says, rather says, I would have preferred, and then suddenly it changes if I would have preferred, because I can live with the situation. I won't die because of this awful situation. I would have preferred it. So I'm not denying that I have a wish that things would be under. And so it's not that I'm suppressing anything. I'm just switching over my emotions a little bit from expectations, which has to be, life has to be this way. I have to be married. I have to have a job. I have to be healthy. Life isn't that way. But I would have preferred to keep my job, to stay healthy and so on. And the moment I can do this, takes a lot of load of pressure from myself, which is created by my own ego, of course.
That is a beautiful reframe. I
Mm.
love that. You know, there's a even and this is a little maybe a little bigger topic, but even when my children passed away and you'd hear people say things like children shouldn't die before their parents. And but that's not reality. So we're literally pushing away reality and making that experience that much harder because of that thought that it shouldn't be this way, which speaks to what you're saying. Of course, we'd prefer
Yeah.
that it was that way. We would prefer that all our loved ones, but that's not the way the world works. I've always thought it would be interesting that if we all were born at the same time and we all died at the same time, and then we didn't have these, moments of stark contrast, but that's literally the essence of life
Yeah.
is to come up against the essence of life through birth and death. What are your thoughts about pre-birth planning and this idea that a lot of the things that we experience, we have planned before we came here, but then forgotten?
On my website, I have a whole video on that one on pre-birth planning. And yes, most of us have gone through the pre-planning process before a child incarnates, a soul incarnates. It is shown more or less the potential of certain situation. There could be an accident. Here is because it's related to karma. Here maybe you lose your wife or whatever. That is also related because you have to do the next step and so on. So we see the potentiality, not 100%, but the potentiality, and we always have a free will to influence it. It's
Mhm.
not 100% sure. Now, not everybody goes through it. There are a lot of souls who are so attached to this planet Earth that the moment they die, they want to come back. The next change. And they skip the whole pre-birth planning and just find the next body to incarnate to be here again. And they are very often ill-prepared. But the main thing is to realize that every one of us, or most of us, have known all the difficult situation we have been facing in this lifetime. Nobody is here against their own free will. Whether you forced yourself into this life or you agreed with the self preparation here, and every soul incarnated on their own free will. Nobody is pushed into this life. So we have known prior our birth what we will encounter, as difficult as it is. And there may be still some very difficult times ahead. As I said, the birthing of the new earth may cause a lot of more suffering and painful periods for many people. But at the end, there's a light at the tunnel at the end. So we still, everything what happens to us, we have agreed to on a much higher awareness prior our incarnation. At the moment when we are here on earth, we don't see it. We don't see the connection. We don't see that one and one plus makes one. And we do not see our spirit guides to help us here. And we see suddenly this awful situation. And it's dreadful because it's not what I had expected my life to be. And therefore, I have to deal with that on one way or the other. And the only way to deal with it is with love. And we have got the Ten Commandments, we have got the Sermon on the Mount. The tools of how to deal it is clearly given to all of us. And if you can put it together in one rule only, which is the golden rule, that's all. That's why I said earlier, God is ingenious simplicity. It's not difficult once we understand it. The rules are very simple. Do I work from love or from judgment? Love or judgment? That's as simple as that. And it can't be more simple. But we forget it. Our ego has got very different programs. Oh, you must do this. What will people think, etc. There's so much old stuff running through our mind that we forget who we are and why we're here.
Interesting. What are your thoughts on why we come here and we forget that pre-birth planning?
Very important that we have to forget this because we want to be totally free. We want to make our decision from love, not from the intellect. If I, for instance, incarnate together with, let's say, another soul who is my mother now, and we had a very awful relationship in a previous lifetime, so that this time I would be nice to each other, etc., then we are here and we make the decision from our head, not from our heart. I have to have this difficult situation of my mother, and I have to use my heart, my love muscle, and says, "Oh, she is a very difficult person. I hate her. I hate her." But I have to overcome it. I have to use my love muscle to really love the person, or the person who is not the personality, but the person with the soul behind it. I have to learn to love that one. And that is difficult. But once we understand, if we only understand, and the other thing is, most importantly, is if we would remember all the horrific things we have done in previous lifetimes, the murders, the stealing, the etc., the adulteries, whatever you, and we all have done it. If we suddenly would remember that, we couldn't go through a whole day. We would be so depressed. We would feel so horrible. That's why this is shielded from us. All our horrible stuff from the past are shielded from us. Also, maybe the way how wonderful we are in truth, that our soul is a divine child of God. Maybe that is in a way also on purpose kept us, so that we remember here and remember it and see it in each other as well. So I think that it is done on purpose that we have the veil of forgetfulness so that we do not, that we really are here. The moment I'm meeting you for the first time, we have never had an interview together. And this is all which matters. If I suddenly should remember all our old past, we maybe have together, it would overshadow it. I would not be in the here and now. I would be busy in something from the past. But now I'm here and now because the only life I have is in the now. And for that, it helps me to remember as little as possible from the past and to
Mhm.
really focus on the here and now, because then I can learn to love and so on. But otherwise, I would be overburdened by my own past life's experiences.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I see a lot of people who are doing past life regressions. They're trying to pull up past lives. They feel like there's things that they're experiencing now that are at the effect of something that happened in a previous past life. They feel like they have to clean up some it. And for me, I can appreciate people doing that, but at the same time, I think I connect more to what you're saying. Like we're living this life now, be here now. What do you have any thoughts about the past life work that people are doing now? Is there value in that, or do you feel like we should just be focused on what we're doing right now?
I'm totally in line with you. I also, there is a reason why we don't remember all our past lives, and fiddling with that and finding it out is often opening a can of worms. And also can be your ego can also be boosted. Suddenly you have been this, a lot of stuff is ego stuff and so on. Oh, I was a soldier, so on, etc. Trying to prove yourself that you have been somebody in a previous lifetime and telling them all your friends and so on. There is a lot of ego stuff in there. I would also stay away. I would probably make some very small exceptions if somebody has a real debilitating disease, which no doctor can help. And it's really paralyzing them, I would probably, if I had that, I probably would say I would find out what is the underlining. Of course, I would firstly go within because all the answers are in us. But if I couldn't get any answer solution from me, I may want to do it in these very rare instances to find out what is the underlying process of my illness. That would be my personal choice. But still, I agree with you. It is not something to recommend the past life regression because there is a reason why we should not. That we should be focusing on the here and now. That's all. And we are given everything we need for this life. All our memories, etc., everything. We have got all the tools. So I agree with you that past life regressions, some people find it helpful and it's good for them. And I met a lot of wonderful past life regressionists through a lot of the interviews I'm giving. It. But for personally, I would say stay away because the answers you're looking for is in you. And if you ask Christ or your guardian spirit or whoever you would like or God to contact with, answers can be given. And as you have done it as well, in a way, the answers can come. Maybe just write the question on a piece of paper, close your eyes, go in meditation, and write slowly. Maybe the answers come through as you're writing it down. Not an auto. I'm not saying everybody should do automatic writing. That's something different. That's where another spirit comes in. But if your higher self or your angelic being, a helper, comes through you and guides you to the answer, that is a different thing. And these answers are only meant for you and not to be shared from other people. If that's how I feel about it. So
Yes.
there is always answers to our questions, but very often we want to. It's our ego who wants to know. Oh, I wonder what I was in a past life, and so on. And that doesn't help.
The ego, that's really interesting because when you were mentioning that about like past life and how our ego attaches to that, and if we find out that we were, some great figure in past life, we can use that to put ourselves on a pedestal. Or if we find out that we were really a victim to something horrific, we can use that. We can attach to that and become the victim in this life. And it's almost like we're replaying, reacting out the life before that was meant for that time period, that experience, and this is this experience. And if we can stay in the now, I've had an interesting image that has been coming to me pretty frequently recently, and it keeps developing. And it's this idea of time and space, and more like a pond than a timeline. And so we have our life here, but then each moment is like the middle of the pond, like the pebble dropping into the pond and rippling out. And so each moment we are having an effect on our younger years as well as our future years. I don't know if you have any insights on that or what your thoughts are about that, but it just feels like, and I give this example a lot that if you had asked me like a month after, my brother died or my children died, what my experience is, I would have given you a completely different experience. I would have given you a completely different accounting of that experience than I would now from this place of healing. It's also interesting for me to consider that what I realized a few years after that event was that in the moment of the event, I had everything that I needed to heal. It was in my humanness that I needed the time to integrate those things. I don't know what you have come across or what you have what you understand or what your opinion or your thoughts are on this idea of the now affecting both the past and the future.
Oh, definitely. Every time, for instance, if I, for instance, now somebody cuts me off in a traffic light and so on, so simple thing like this. If I am forgiving that person, I immediately dissolving the karma of the past.
Mm.
So every time I'm forgiving somebody or if somebody forgives me, the karma gets dissolved. That's why forgiveness, 7 times 70 forgiveness is so important. So this means with everything clearing up, every time we see a past event more positive, we are basically clearing it up. So forgiveness is the most important one on asking for forgiveness and making amends. This way we're clearing up all our karma, and our karma is our past. So we're cleaning up and we also change the future because then we no longer have the past. We basically clear our path on the way and make it more lightful. So I really think every moment we have an opportunity to affect the past as well as the future. And every moment what I'm doing affects the future. Every decision, every thought I have, every emotion I have affects my future. And I also have with my free will the choice to clear up the past every time. So I am definitely involved in both kind of past and the future at any given moment in my life. And I like the pond idea, yeah, because in the real absolute reality, there is no time. Time
Right.
is only here. And like we have got also the contrast, the space, space and time is an illusion, and we are living in it. We need it, I guess, to understand or to function in this kind of reality. But it is not real. The reality is a permanent now. That is the God divine area from where we came and to where we will return again. But at the moment, we have got here in this temporary reality, time and space, we have got the contrasts and we have got the law of karma, the cause and effect, which does not exist in the permanent now either because there is no time. Therefore, cause and effect does not, everything happens instantaneously there. So we have here time and space, and that includes, unfortunately, karma or cause and effect. And
Mm.
basically, all what we experience here is an effect of past of causes we have said earlier, and vice versa, we're continuously causing. Basically, we are rewinding our life from the past. Right now, whatever I experience and whatever comes into my life is something from the past. And I have to deal with lovingly in a way, forgiveness, lovingly, whatever. So there is hardly anything new coming into my life. I've got so much stuff there, which is all stored in the planets, in the repository planets. That's where astrology comes from originally. And when the time is right that I am ready to face some drama of the past, which I've caused, that drama will come into my life right now, and I have to deal with it. And it's up to me. Do I react to it, which means I fight back, or do I respond to it and change it back into life or love?
Mm.
So that's why our life is always on rewind.
Yeah. Astrology is interesting. I call it like cosmic weather.
Ah, great, great. I like it.
Um, and astrology is so interesting, and there's different philosophies on it, and I have my own philosophies on it. I've studied astrology, human design, those systems, and a lot of people feel like they're at the effect of astrology, but I look at it as similar to what you're talking about, that all of it is happening for our good. When we have astrological transits, when the planets are moving and it's shifting and changing what we're experiencing here, like the clock, astrology is the clock. It's all happening for our greater good to bring us to that next level if we allow it to. What are your thoughts about that and how astrology works in that way?
Totally. I still wonder whether today's astrologers are still so much in contact as in the olden times. I think astrology, there is a lot of, I don't know, there are too many, I should say it's useless or whatever, but it has been distorted over the years, or less and less understood. It is true that all our karma is stored in their repository planets and they move and they come around and come back to us. How many people are still gifted to read it? I don't know. Maybe there are more than I'll give credit to. But as you say, everything that comes down to us, gets downloaded back to us, happens for us and not to us, which Byron Katie always says. Everything happens for us and not to us, and everything is medicine. Everything is here helping us on our path. It's just our ego sees it differently. And yeah, it's all here to get us free. Everything is here on the path to freedom. We want to become free of all this garbage which we have created over the past generations, in the past incarnations, to return back home, to have our soul vibration higher and higher and higher, so that we eventually return back home. That is the story of the prodigal son who left his father's home, got lost in this world, and eventually, when it hit rock bottom, decides, I think I have to go back. And he returns home, and the father welcomes him with open arms. That is your story. That's my story. That's the story of everybody who is watching it. That is the true story. And for me, it's the most important story ever told. The story of the prodigal son, because in that is our whole salvation and also the hope we have. And through our day-to-day actions of being kind, helpful, forgiving, living by the Golden Rule, the Ten Commandments, and the Sermon on the Mount, we step by step can move ourselves back home.
Beautiful. That's one of my favorites too. That whole, and I heard it reframed instead of the prodigal son, the running father.
Yes, the running father. I like
And
that.
and I love that. I love calling it, the story of the running father because that is what it is. We're here on this interesting cosmic playground, living out our, current ego frame, our current embodiment. And then, when we're finished with this particular life and this particular experience, we leave this life and we have the running father. We have and it happens here too. It happens here. We can, as you said much earlier about this idea of being asleep to our relationship to the Creator, being asleep to our relationship to God, and waking up to that. When we wake up to that, as in the story of the prodigal son, and he returns to that relationship, and it reminds me of what you shared earlier as well about your father not really accepting this idea that there was going to be an afterlife or there was going to be this loving welcome on the other side. And then he gets to the other side and finds out, oh, yes, there is. It turns out Hans was right. And he's thankful for you for sharing that with him because I imagine that made his transition that much easier, which what is why he came back and asked you to begin sharing these things. Did you, when you received that message, did you immediately start sharing these things online? What was that process like for you to
No,
begin the process that you're doing now?
I had to think about it because he suggested to write books because he was working on the receiving station of souls which have just died. And he said, I see all the confusions here. So many people are not even aware that they are dead, so many souls. So could I please write some books? And I've done over 200 books published, but I didn't want to do more books. Besides, I also believe there are different ways to communicate. And at that time, that was before TikTok, I wanted to reach the young people and made these short videos, but that took maybe another half a year until I decided that's what I'm going to do and share that. Until that time, and if my father wouldn't have said that, I would not have even had the desire to express my personal beliefs publicly, because I believe the spirit path is something very personal. It's the same like in the olden days in America, we never discussed here what kind of party I would be voting for. But now suddenly everybody is divided by Republicans or Democrats. So I kept this as something very personal. I didn't like anybody knocking at my door and trying to make me a Jehovah Witness or whatever. So I didn't want to go around either other people, tell other people what they should believe. I respected that.
Hmm.
But now with my videos, I merely offer it. Those who want to watch it can watch it, and those who don't watch, that's fine too. I'm not running after anybody. Just like a lighthouse, it doesn't run after the ships and saves the ships. It just shines quietly, and it's up to you, with the ship or the captain, whether he wants to use the light or not. We have got the free will. But the thing is that when this is my father, I think what is also interesting, which gave me so much comfort, shortly thereafter, I have a letter, I think it's on my website there, a lady in England whose father died several years ago, and she had a very close contact with the father. And every night she would sit there and communicate with him, with his soul. So one day the father said to her, Why don't you go to the YouTube, go to on the computer, put in YouTube and find a channel and I spell the name to you. And he spelled Hans Wilhelm, my name to her, which she thought was an opera singer because he was very interested in listening to operas. So she punched in the thing and up comes my channel. And the first video comes up about grieving. And when she saw that, she was blown away because that was a message her father was going to her that if we grieve too long, we are holding the soul onto this planet Earth for too long. They have their own path to continue. So there is always time for grieving. So grieving itself, as you surely know, is not wrong. We have to process it. But if it goes over years or something like this, then the soul is held back from their own progress. So he used my video to give her that message. So I knew that I was doing something right, at least there. So if somebody in England suddenly is ghost spirit goes on the computer with my name, I think it must be something to it. But yeah, that's how the story went. And that's how I did it. And now how many? 200 videos, and they're all very short. And anybody who wants to watch them, just punch in my name, Hans Wilhelm, and you will find it there.
Yeah, and we'll have that link for you as well. In what way do you feel like the soul is held back by grief? Because I kind of I wonder about this. Um, I actually one of the very first I work as a spiritual medium, and one of the very first messages before I was doing this work, it was the thing that opened me up to it. I actually had a son of a friend of mine visit me out of the blue, and he had passed away only 2 weeks before. And part of his message was about this idea of letting him go, and so that he had work to do, and so that message always, I mean, it was so fresh. Like, it's not like we're going to let them go in 2 weeks. And I don't want to even imply that's a thing that we do, because it does take our human body, that combination of mind, body, and spirit time to process this major shift and this major shock. But frankly, that message I received, this has been 6 years ago, has always kind of haunted me a little bit I, because of this feeling of what we're doing here affecting them on the other side. And that's just it feels like another burden to carry. So I would love for you to speak a little more about your understanding of grief and grieving, and what that process is like for those that are on the other side as well as those that are here.
Well, my understanding is as follows. We are all different and we all have a different death experience. So we all die differently, we come a different vibration, different reality, we're facing different situation. There is not one answer to that. But we can speak from the majority. The majority of souls will probably land in another world, which is similar to the one we have here, without all the problems we have here, without having to eat and work and so on. But we are on a much higher level. It's a beautiful life in a way for most of us there. And we see our relatives or the dear ones whom we have left behind on planet Earth through a foggy image. And particularly when they always think of us, these are all vibrations and depend on the soul. I want to help. If a mother dies, she wants to help the child left behind who is confused. It's a natural thing. So they will initially want to help and stand by them. Of course, they can do only limited things because they are not allowed to interfere with the free will of the person who is alive.
Right.
They are supporting them by present there and says, "Look, I am fine." Usually, that person doesn't hear it, and so on. But so they are concerned about it that the soul on earth is suffering so much. The person on the is crying and so on, and in many cases believing that the person who has died is worse off than they were on earth, which is
Mhm.
99% not the case. They're usually much better off. So these souls in the spiritual realm, these relatives and friends want to help as much as they can because they do see the suffering. And they dedicate part of their existence to be there with a person, to just sort of be present with them. and assure them somehow their presence. But that level where they are is only a temporary level. That is only one step. There's another step after that, and another step. Eventually, these souls know that this is only this level, and I have to go further. I still have to do a lot of work so that my vibration goes higher, so I can go to the next level and the next level. So eventually, they will also think about themselves that they have. This is only the first state. We have to go to many more. And as long as people still pull them back to planet Earth, they can't move on. Now, very loving souls maybe don't mind being sort of connected with, like the example I gave you. I think she was connected with her father for 5 years, and the father came every night and spoke with her. But eventually he had enough, He says, I have
Mm,
to move on here. So that's the question when the soul in the spiritual realm decides enough now, I have to move on, then it becomes a real big burden. So yes, this grieving is really, these are energy. We're only talking energy. Whole existing of life is nothing but energy and vibration. You and I are not really, there's nothing matter here. We are all energy vibration in our essence. And this energy of strong grieving or wanting the person to be still with me and so on, all these desires, etc., are really very strong ties. And we're not serving the person in the soul, in the spiritual level to continue too much on it. But as I say, you went through it, and it's just, we have to go through this grieving. We can't push it under the rug. We have to face it. We have to go through it. But after it was time, we should realize it's time for me to move on. And when I'm ready to move on, then the other soul can also move on. So it's freedom on both ways. It's freedom for myself and freedom for that soul. But so few people know that the soul is still alive. I mean, that's
mm,
you for you and me, it's a given. But if you
right.
really ask around, well, most people are not even aware whether they will be alive after death. So why should they think that the person who has just died would be alive? They believe that life, they have given up a life which could be so wonderful for them here on planet Earth. But is that a given? Who has had this wonderful life? Everybody I know has had their dramas. So we're not all having these wonderful lives. We have wonderful moments, but very few have a wonderful life. So that's where our limited thinking comes into as human beings here, that if I don't believe in life after death, it's very difficult for me to believe the person who is so dear to me should have also an existing after their death.
Mm.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
It's really interesting that you mention all that because I often will teach people how to communicate with spirit, communicate with their
Mhm.
spirit team, communicate with angels, and communicate with their loved ones. One of the things that's interesting is that I I know how to communicate with my children. I know how to communicate with my brother who have passed, but I don't spend a lot of time doing that. I feel like they're there, they're doing their part there, and I'm here doing my part here. And it's maybe, honestly, maybe a couple times a year where I sit down and I very clearly communicate with them. And your explanation makes so much sense that it's yeah, we each doing our part in a different realm, and we're not meant to be continuously. I look at it this way. I often think about, like, when our kids go off to college, now they're living their life. If we're on the phone with them all day, 24 hours, we are impeding their experience in college. And we're also impeding our own life because we're just staying connected in a way that's not serving either party. And I don't, as I'm saying this, I don't want to discourage anyone from connecting with their loved ones on the other side in whatever way feels correct for them in the moment. That is available to all of us. And I kind of put myself out of business sometimes because I tell people, you don't need me. You don't need me. Like, you have that ability to make that connection. One of the videos that I first saw that on your channel was one about genealogy and like family research. And I spent many years doing genealogical research, so that really caught my attention. And I would love for you to share some of your thoughts about that.
Well, whenever we are interested in where I come from here as a human being, where my ancestors were and where they come from, I'm only interested in the shell, in my physical body, not my soul. My soul is totally separate. Yes, my body, the genes of my body do maybe come from somebody in Germany, from, I don't know, from whoever, many times ago and many different people. But my soul is totally independent from that. It is on the same vibration as my genes, because otherwise there couldn't have come the incarnation into that body. But the genes can come from very different kind of uh, people with whom I was never related to. I was never incarnated. Maybe the first time in Western Europe, this is the first time. Maybe in the past I was always in Africa and South America, and now I have nothing. My soul has no connection to the genes of my physical body. And the thing is, why we do is very often for our ego because we want to know who we are. We want to both ways, as you said earlier, the same thing. Either we want to find out that we have been famous, somewhat famous person, or we have got the victim. We have been the slaves and so on. These two, our ego loves to play on this one. We want to feel some importance, but we give all our focus on the past ancestry or genealogy, and we think it's us, when in truth we are a soul. And the soul's origin comes from heaven, we can say, from the highest realm, and has little to nothing to do with the genealogies. So I really think there's a big difference. Our soul has chosen this body with these particular genes because it serves us best in this lifetime to be here right now, for me in Northern Germany, etc., and to live that life. I needed that, not so much what my father, grandfather, or grandparents were. That what my soul needed, and that's why I was there. So I have basically little connection, but I do sometimes inherit trauma and other belief system from the people of my family, physical family on earth, that I really can, if I identify too much with it, it's not my stuff, it's their stuff. And if I, for instance, incarnate here into a body of a black person in America, and I suddenly identify with all the slavery in the past, and I just run around, oh my God, I was a slave, and so on, etc. That may not particularly be true, but I can still deal with that trauma. I have to deal with this trauma and let that be because it's not part of me. That's part of them and not me. I am a different person right now. So we have to sometimes deal with trauma, family trauma, but in many cases it's not us. And most of the stuff that we deal with are beliefs which we have adopted from our environment. They are not ours. Most of the stuff we believe in life is not ours. That's why I question everything, and question everything that I say, because whatever my beliefs may not be right for you either. So our goal is to question. Is this really true? As Byron Katie says, can I know for sure that this is true? Can I know for sure that I have been part of the slavery in 100 or 200 years ago here in America? Do I know for sure? No, I don't. So why do I take it on?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and question everything. And often I think that when we go to a doctor's office and they take a history, they take the family history.
Mhm.
And often when I'm filling out the family history, when I've gone to a new doctor and they ask about, people who have passed in my family and how they passed and so forth. And for example, my brother died by suicide.
Mhm.
And when I put that on a family history, I know that they're looking at that and assuming that I'm dealing with depression or I'm dealing with, they're putting those
Mhm.
categories on me. And I think that we do that to ourselves. I hear people all the time say, "Oh, I have this or I have that. It's genetic. It came from my family." And I don't think that we need to be taking those things on as ours just because someone close in our family experienced those things.
Absolutely, absolutely right. You know, Bruce Lipton with his genealogy that we just sort of continuously change our genes. We don't have to accept that the old genes are still ours. We have carried that body. Yeah, I agree totally with you what you're saying. We are driven by the belief system of our environment, and one of the biggest problems, I believe, is at the moment our media, which gives us belief system of war, of situation, of political situation, which keeps the whole vibration of, in our country particularly, very, very low.
Hmm.
Because we somehow identify Warwick, etc., about these, whatever is there and happens. So the media is one of the major source of belief system which are not always true. And they affect a large sector of our society and even affect me sometimes when I watch this. Oh, I shouldn't have watched the news. It affects me somehow and I have to let go of that as well. So there is a lot of continuously advertising belief system around us, pushing us, believes that this cream is the best for your face, etc. And we have to fight back and we have to believe, we have to learn to trust ourselves, our inner guidance. It always comes back. The kingdom of God is in me, not out there in the media and the television sets. It's in here. And everything I ever need to know is in here. And every question I have can only be answered in here. It's all in there. We all have it. We are just not really trained to use it.
Yeah, it's there's a reason that TV is called programs.
Yes. Very good. Very, very, very good. Yeah.
Because it's literally programming us. And
Yeah.
I notice that myself if I'm experiencing something or I'm noticing my mood shifting in certain ways and I start looking about what has been my input. I often wonder what the how the world would change overnight if everyone stopped watching news. They just stopped watching it
Yeah.
and everybody just developed their own presence and their own inner guidance and their and the golden rule, right? And just experienced love and cultivated that love within, the world would change overnight.
Yeah. Love is a very difficult thing to do for most of us. I sometimes use the other word, which is easier, kindness. If
Mm,
to the kindness, we can relate to that easier. To love somebody else is not always, we have,
yeah.
it's a big thing for us. Hardly anybody loves themselves. And because we don't love ourselves, we find it difficult to love other people. But with kindness, it's easier, it's a more accessible kind of way of communicating with the world around us if we can use the word kindness.
And be kind to ourselves too.
Yeah,
I often think
good.
of the words, that are attributed to Jesus, love others as you love yourself. And that often gets in a Christian community. I've seen it often used as we need to love others, we need to love others, and they look at the loving ourselves as selfishness, but it literally says love others as you love yourself. And I think when they use the word love, they mean love. And they don't mean it's not selfish to love yourself. It actually amplifies your ability to love others. It's very cyclical, I find. The more that I genuinely find that love within, the more genuinely I can love others, and vice versa. As I show more love and care and kindness to others, it helps me to show more love and kindness and care to myself. It's very cyclical.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think what Christ meant with this basically love ourselves is basically self-respect and self-honoring.
Hmm.
Do these two things, which is another form of self-love, but self-respect, which means I don't hurt myself, I don't give my the wrong food, etc. I respect my body, etc., and with the right thoughts and so on. Self-honoring and self-respecting, that I think the highest self-love we can give to ourselves.
I love that. I love that. Before we close, I would love for you to just share just a little bit about your understanding of the death process. I noticed recently you've put in a, go there, watch his videos because you did several videos on like earthbound spirits and the death experience and, going into the light and so forth. Will you share just a little bit about what you understand about the death process? This helps us here to understand what our loved ones have gone through that have passed on, and it helps prepare us for that inevitable moment ourselves.
Well, to my understanding is Earth for here, for most of us, is a school. And when the school comes to an end, we have graduation time. And death is nothing but graduation, simply. And what Byron Katie always says, everybody dies right on time.
Mhm.
That's very difficult for us to accept because, as you say, some believe they cannot, you have to be old before you die. Young people cannot die or shouldn't die, but everybody dies directly on the time. We also have agreed prior our incarnation that when we will die, because we only need so many times, or so many years to achieve what we have to achieve. And some only need a few weeks, or some even a few hours. And some children, if they're hardly after birth, get uh, return back to the spiritual world. All this is done by on plan. All this, there are no accidents here. So once we understand that everybody dies right on time, there's already some pressure gone there, I would say. Everybody is received on the other side by welcoming angels. Not everybody is willing to see them and accept them. That's a whole different topic we can speak about, particularly people who are committing suicide and so on. They are often so in their guilt and sorrow, etc., that they don't see the light of souls who want to help them onto the other side. But most of them do, and we may be welcomed by spirit beings who have we known from past lives or in this lifetime, and then we are going according into that sphere which corresponds to our soul vibration with like-minded people. That's basically in a nutshell, and there's a lot of variation in that one. But it is a process which is a natural process. If we understand that this world is only 800,000 hours for most of us, not more, then of course this can't be it. It is a school, like you mentioned this wonderful example you said earlier about college, where we are just for a short time, but we are not supposed to stay in college for the rest of our existence. So after time, it's over. This is over. And it's quite refreshing to know that eventually, if I have to come back, I get a new body because this one gets a little bit old over time. But it is not our calling to return. This can be our last time. All of us have the opportunity to make this our last time to incarnate. If we can clear up as much as possible in this lifetime on negative karma, uh, heal all the connections of people with whom we have got some negative vibrations or negative connections, we don't have to come back to this difficult lifetime. We can continue growing in the spiritual realm. And the people we have had dear to us, we are definitely seeing again one day in the spiritual realm, which includes also our pets. So there will be reuniting, there will be reunions en masse when we return, and it will be a great experience. And it's just that we don't understand death anymore. Death was understood as a very natural way of the primordial Christians celebrated when somebody died. It was a relief of the burdening and difficult earth world. It's just only when the religions took over and everybody had to dress in black and you had to mourn and you have to suffer, death became very unrealistic and it lost its true sense and became more formula, more a tradition, more rituals or something like that. But the natural form of dying is that I've done my share here, I'm leaving you all behind, I'm moving on into the spiritual realm. And we'll meet again. And that's in a nutshell. I think that's a very broad overview. There are a lot of variations in this one, and anybody who's interested can see my various videos. We also speak about earthbound souls, which is another whole video. There are quite a few souls who cannot really go into the spiritual realm. They are so attached to their possessions, to their fame, to people that they stay on this planet Earth and they can wander here on for a long, long time. But that's another topic.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. One of the questions I love to ask all my guests is, what are some of the spiritual practices that you enjoy?
Well, definitely meditation. You have to have a few minutes every day to calm your mind, to sit down, close your eyes, and in the evening, preferably to reflect back of how your day went, what went right, what went wrong. I have a diary where I write down the positive as well as the negative, because that's how you really see what is actually happening in your life. So write it down in a very short sentence, not long novels. Um, I think that is the most important thing. And whenever there is a question, to go back to source, which we have, we carry this whole universe in us, Christ in us. So if there is a question, sit down, speak with Christ, speak with God. And I also recommend, if you can, do it loud, because when we speak loud, we think slower and we hear our thoughts better. If we are having it only working on our very fast kind of mind, we may miss the answers our soul may give us. So I think that is very powerful. And if we are able to say if something negative happens, the first words to say thank you, we are ahead, because eventually we will say thank you to whatever negative thing will happen to us. It can be an illness, can be death, can be whatever it is, loss of job, loss of money. Eventually our soul will see that this was necessary so that we can be free again. It's all a part of freedom. So these are the few things which I try to stay with. And I read also a lot of spiritual books, which helps me focus as well.
Thank you. And how can people get a hold of you? How can they connect with you?
Well, if anybody's interested in the videos, just go to YouTube and punch in my name, Hans Wilhelm, and the channel will come up right away. But I also have a website where all these videos are on as well in a different order. It's called lifeexplained.com.
Lifeexplained.com. Excellent. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Julie. It was such a pleasure and honor to have been with you, and I love the subjects we discussed. I hope they will help some people. Thank you for having invited me.
Thank you.